I was like, oh man, something just bit me. I come out and I'm bleeding like hell. I still got the scar right on my ankle right there. Today is a crucial part of the build here on the reception hall at White Oak Manor. Installing the roof sheathing is going to go a long way into letting us waterproof the entire structure. Now it's a cold morning, so let's get started and make it happen, Captain. We were going to go switch out 2 windows that were incorrectly delivered, and it was supposed to be a lot easier, but when we showed up to the location this morning, the house was completely sided. So now they're going to have to remove the siding to remove the windows, put the windows back in the new windows in the correct location, and then re-side those said areas. So we'll have to make do with what we got. We do have some very good help here today, but what's most important is that we get this thing perfectly straight, everything in line, and finish framing the peak before we start installing either side. So one thing we're gonna have to do before we start working on the roof sheathing is on these gable ends, if we do not frame something in between these horizontal beams, we're gonna have a massive air pocket coming through to the inside. So to make it a little quicker in the long run, even though it may slow us down on the sheathing, it's gonna be nice for us to frame a little wall here, plywood that off, and give the insulator somewhere to fill. If we had to do that off of the job lift, it'd probably take at least 3 times the amount of time than if we did it right now. So we're gonna screw down a lower 2x4 to the steel beam, install some small studs and a top plate, attach that to the horizontal beam, and then have some plywood sheathing on the outside of that before we go with the sheathing of the main roof. So what Antonio's doing right there is a very smart thing. He's marking that end to end exactly flush with the gable truss, so that when he frames the chicken ladder that's going to support the insulation, he knows that his framing is perfectly straight, and then it also saves time by not having to individually measure each section. So he'll mark that off, square down with a square, and all of his framing will be perfectly in line. But then we had another time, we had a big rain or something, and it had formed like a little pond up there. Eddie's all up in this thing, man, all around. I'm like, hell yeah. I jump in this damn thing, I'm wallering around with him. Next thing you know, I felt something bit me on my foot. And I was like, oh man, something just bit me. I run home, the snake done bit me, crying like hell. And it was a piece of glass bottle was in the bottom of that thing. Done stabbed me in the side, but it was only, I was sure as hell a snake bit me, you know, all the way home. Snake bit me, snake bit me. We're gonna hang this end over a little wild. I'm gonna let it hang past a little bit like we do decking boards. Pop a nice line and cut it off. And as we run it, we'll just overhang that edge. A couple inches past, we can nail it real good, and I'll pop a line, one straight line down, and we'll just cut it right off. Oh, he revved up now. He got some horsepower now. That John Deere working, boy. Oh, I ain't got it, Poop. Let me come over here. Oh, okay, I got it. Oh, my goodness. I ain't have it. I was going down like the Titanic. We are rolling, baby. We're finally getting our rhythm. We're not going to talk about or complain about the disadvantage we have in the shade side, but we are stuck on the shade side and they got the pretty old sun side. But we're not talking and complaining about disadvantages or anything. Absolutely freezing cold. You can't see it through that camera lens, but this wind is howling today. Even the drone flying like crazy, didn't even know how to land. We gotta go write paychecks, so I gotta get out of here before my hands turn into Mr. Krabs and don't want to get rid of anything. So apparently, my 100% sure freshly made sawhorses were not as thoroughly built as we originally planned, and this side seemed to have not made it through the weekend. Fortunate for us, nothing went off the roof, nothing was damaged, as far as I can tell right at the moment. So we'll take this apart, restack this, so we can, you know, kind of reform our sawhorses here as we get closer to working on this side. It's really a shame because everything else seemed to hold up really well, except for this one unit. But it did have a lot of weight on it, that's for sure. Disaster averted, baby. Now as Wheezy's perched up there like a bird, he's able to jump off that toe board, nail that middle section. With this roof being so steep, it's really nice to have somebody working the top, somebody working the middle, and somebody working the bottom. Also real necessary for us to keep these boards as straight as possible, checking them with a string line every so often to make sure that there's no adjustment needed in or out. You can easily hold one portion out at 16th at a time to make sure we're back straight, because these boards, even though they're cut from very similar tree or even the same tree, they still have different thicknesses, albeit a 16th or 1/8 of a difference. So if you don't check that every 5 or 6 runs, if you will, very easy for that line to get off, either out or in, or even in a swooping fashion. So we'll check it every so often, as we have been, all the way down. Make sure that thing stays nice and straight and looking pristine from underneath. I forgot that this thing had the extra big pump on it. I was like, golly, I didn't fill this thing up twice today. He's like, yeah, we got to fill it up 3 times a day. I'm like, what in the world? But then I looked over here and see we got the extra big pump with the 6.5 motor on it, which produces a lot more air, which helps during framing. And that kind of explains where the gas goes. Roll air, 1 pump, go baby. So over here on the bottom edge, we're letting that run wild for the time being. We're finishing up strong and nice and straight at the top, attaching it all the way down. And after we finish, because this is such at a reasonable height to work with, we're gonna pop a line from end to end, or maybe from the middle to the end, and from the middle onward, so that we can cut a nice straight line across this fascia. So when I install my 2x12, or whatever fascia we end up using out here, it'll be nice and straight and give me a great place to attach our metal roofing trim to. Coming over here on the other side to check on Bugs and Hector and them, they are really rolling along. They've got us probably by 10 or 12 feet on the other side, which is really exciting for me because we're not exactly sure how far this lumber is really going to take us. Now, originally I thought we were going to need about 12,000 linear feet of our 1x6 tongue and groove boards. They only sent us 9,600 linear feet, which is definitely not what I asked for. So I calculated we're going to need about 1,290 more linear feet to make it from where they're at now to the end of the roof, and I think we just got enough on this side. The way we started out, I just thought there was no way we'd ever have a chance to make it to the end of this roof today. But the way they're getting it together and getting this thing moving, I think we're gonna make it, baby. The view from underneath here at this poplar wood going through the ceiling is just absolutely fantastic. I can start to see how it's gonna turn all out once it's clear coated and stained. It's gonna be absolutely magnificent. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode, guys. That's covering all the roof sheathing. As you can see, we're on the very last rows, and it couldn't be a better sight for sore eyes. So make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button and help us keep growing, baby. And until next time, you guys have a great day. Must have this not to destroy boys, or not to destroy. Must have this not to destroy. Must have this not to destroy boys. Man, why can't I get over that?